Hello friends and enemies. Welcome to or back to Happy for Now. It's me, Isabel, here with a TBR of sorts. This is definitely one that I know is not going to be for everyone, but I want to share what I want to read because I think you can feel very isolated in the situation I'm currently in, and a lot of us have been in and experienced until it's over, and then you meet a ton of people who have gone through it, which is really weird, but that is what I have felt the most in my process of grief and mourning and all the things. So this is going to be my grief and death TBR list. A lot of this I think all of this is nonfiction. There's a couple fiction books I want to read that deal with grief and going through the process, but I don't know that I want to read them yet. These are kind of ones I'm reading in anticipation of going through this process versus while I'm going through it to like help me recover and process it. I am someone who processes things a lot via books and text and talking to other people. So for me, this feels like the right way to kind of set myself up for success when I have this looming thing that is coming. If you aren't aware, last January, like a year ago officially, my dad was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. We knew something was wrong, and it's been a very isolating experience, to say the least. I've met a handful of people who have also gone through this or are going through this, but most people I've met that are dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's type things have people that are much, much older in their lives than my dad, who's under 70, and it's a lot. It's not a thing you think you're going to go through when you're in your 30s. It doesn't feel like when you're supposed to be dealing with this yet. I feel like I'm supposed to have like 10 or 15 more years of like life with them, but here we are. So let's talk about it. All right. So I have 8 books for you that I'm wanting to read. First out, I have Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Caitlin Doughty. There's 2. There's one more by her on here. Basically, I feel like she is someone who always comes up in these conversations when talking about books about this subject, and I think it can be really enlightening to read about this whole process and things about it from someone who works in the industry, which is a weird thing to say, but it is an industry. It is a business. It definitely can help, I think, to just get that perspective. There's also another book by her, From Here to Eternity, that I would like to read. And if I enjoy that, I'll probably read like Will My Cats Eat My Eyeballs or other questions books she has. But these 2 are my top priority from her. I've always seen her on lists in this grouping, and I just think that they would be a good starting point for me to start kind of just thinking about things more. On that note, there's All Things Living and Dead by Haley Campbell. This one's like an iffy on my TBR. This follows a person who decides to research about the death industry and like people who follow different things, from murderers to deciding to go into the funeral business and things like that. Like I said, this is an iffy on my TBR. It's one that I'm like kind of interested in it, but I'm also not sure if it's what I want to read. Next, we have The Mourner's Bestiary by Erin Caffel, something like that. This is a literary memoir, caveat, but it's not very long, so I feel like I would like it. And it also pairs her family's 200 plus year running kidney disease that they have, that's genetic, and the Gulf of Maine and their warming ecosystem. And I am very intrigued by this. I've heard really good things from people who don't always read nonfiction, and I think it sounds like a wonderful pairing at the end of the day. And as somebody like who has someone in their family now with Alzheimer's, it can be genetic, and that's scary. And I think this could be a really interesting insight for me with a different kind of disease, obviously, but still to just reflect and think about this a little bit more. I also love this cover. I do believe this is a Spotify audiobook or something, so I might use my Spotify premium to listen to it. But yeah, I'm really, really curious about this one. Like I said, I've heard it's really, really good. So I'm like, fingers crossed I love it, because literary memoir isn't always my go-to. But the premise of what it is and what it's pairing with the global warming stuff and animals really tugs at my heartstrings, and is definitely something that like feels like very for me. Then we have The In-Between by Hadley Valhos. Then we have The In-Between by Hadley Valhos. I'm not sure. She's an RN. She was on TikTok, and she has been a hospice nurse, and I've really, really enjoyed her TikToks about death and dying and hospice and all these things. They've been really comforting, actually. So I want to read her book. It feels like the right thing to read, whether it's now or right after things happen with my dad. I'm not sure when, but I feel like it's something that will be very helpful to kind of go in with ahead of time. Next we have Dancing at the Pity Party by Tyler Fetter. This is a graphic memoir about her loss of her mother to cancer, and while different, still relatable. My dad, not my mom. But yeah, I still think this sounds pretty relatable, and I love a graphic memoir. I love graphic formatted things, so I feel like this is one of those ones that's just like a no-brainer for me to try. Next we have one that I feel like is on everyone's list. So So I put it on my list, and I don't know, like, y'all can convince me one way or the other, I guess, on if I should read this or not. And that is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. Her daughter goes into the hospital, and then they come back from visiting her daughter, and her husband drops dead from a coronary attack that night at dinner. And it's her processing grief. And I was like, girl, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I could do this when I was reading it. I was like, ooh. I'm not positive if this is for me, but I'm willing to give it a try or be convinced one way or the other. If somebody has like a very hard lean of like, yes, you should read it because X, Y, and Z, I will listen to you and I will try it. But if somebody is like, absolutely not, I also am willing to not. It's one of those books that like, if you Google lists for this, like it just comes up over and over. So I can't help but wonder with that, because like, has it helped that many people, I guess then, which probably yes. But also that just sounds so hard. And you know, things are already hard. And I just, feels very emotional. Next, we have the very specific Alzheimer's one I have on my list, which my mom already read, and I think my brother read too, and I do want to read. I just was not in the place for it. And that is My Father's Brain by Sandeep Jahar. He's a neurologist, I believe, or a neurosurgeon, something medical. And he chronicles his father's diagnosis and dementia descent with it. Like his progression, not descent, his progression with dementia. And then also his family's journey of accepting the diagnosis. And like, you know, some of them don't want to accept it, some of it do. It's a very turbulent thing. And that's very relatable. I think we all struggle with who to tell and how to tell people and, you know, how to share it, because it is such a personal thing to go through, and also the person going through it can't always communicate how they want it shared or that they even have it. So yeah, I'm really intrigued by this one. I'm a little nervous for it as well. And then last but not least, I will share with you one of the fiction books on my TBR to read that I don't know if I want to read it before or after, but it's a horror book that has been on my radar for ages now. I'm very interested in it, and it's called Monstrillo this is by Gerardo Samano Cordova. This is about a mother grieving and takes like a piece of her son and I guess like turns it into a monster. It sounds really intriguing to me, and very interesting, because grief feels like a monster. And as someone in grief, and in the weird grief where like, you know, somebody's not going to be here, like anticipatory grief, this feels very interesting. And again, I would strongly say grief feels like a monster anyways. So there's that. All right. So I would love to know if you have any suggestions for me on things you think I should be picking up in this category. Again, I know it's very, very specific. Even if it's a fiction book, I'm open to both. I'm just someone who really, really, really likes processing things via text sometimes, whether that audio or visually. And I find that very helpful. So I would love to know if you have any suggestions for books you've read in this category that you think would be helpful to people. And if you don't want to do any of that, I don't know, pick an emoji. Give me your top third used emoji, I guess. Hopefully it feels really inappropriate for the topic of this video, because that will make me laugh really hard, to be honest with you. So yeah, you can do that down below. I'll have links to all these books for you down there, links to my friend anywhere on the internet that I am, and I will talk to y'all in just a few days. Bye!
Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions. We'll get away. This is what we waited for.